Foster Care Nation, listen up. This is
Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey.
Strength for the powerless, courage for the fearful, hope and healing for wounded hearts. Hello and welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason
and Amanda.
Today's guest is Natalie Fisher Chavis. No, Natalie Chavis Fisher.
There you go.
Oh my goodness, I got it right early. Now I went and got it backwards.
But you got the Chavis right.
I looked up at your name on there and said, wait, no, Fisher's first. No, it's not. How you doing today, Natalie?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jason and Amanda?
I was doing really well until all of a sudden the English language decided to leave me.
It happens.
That it does.
Yes, it does. Well, as you well know, we talk about foster care and adoption on here a lot. Pretty exclusively, actually. And so I ran across you, and you have quite the story to tell. Like, you're connected in multiple ways here. And we just thought, man, this is somebody who needs to tell her story. So can you tell us a little bit about how you're connected to the foster care system and maybe how you got involved?
Oh, yeah. No, awesome. I certainly will. So I am a child welfare attorney. And so I've practiced child welfare law for about 20 years. And 99% of my practice are foster care adoptions at this point. So I've done foster care adoptions for quite some time, but I've also represented biological parents whose rights are being terminated or who have abused or neglected their children. So I have helped them with rehabilitation or certainly negotiating post-adoption contact or just things of that nature. And I'm also a certified CASA worker. So I volunteer as a CASA worker just to help be a voice for the child. I really consider all of my work sort of being a voice for the child. And the way I got into it was just sort of serendipitous. You know, I started practicing law with my dad, and he just gave me 5 cases. My father kind of believes you just, baptism by fire, right? So he gives you what you got, and then he says, you're going to sink or swim. It's your choice. So I decided I was going to swim. And so these particular cases, I fell in love with the cases. I'm like, I don't need any other type of case. I want to deal with abused and neglected children. I want to help families heal. I want to help, foster parents solidify forever homes, become licensed and things of that nature. So, 20 years later, this is kind of what I've been doing. But I will tell you, just recently, about a year or so ago, it dawned on me because I was wondering, what was the affinity? What was the attraction other than a call, right? And you always sort of lean into your call. I feel like whatever you're passionate about, that's your call. So you lean into it. And I was also trying to figure out, what's their origin? And I just got to be thinking about a year or so ago. And I said, well, my grandmother always fostered children. Now, it wasn't through the foster care system proper, but she fostered children. And then my aunt was a foster mother. And so I grew up with foster cousins. And I just thought it was the neatest thing to have cousins that had stories that they were now recovering from and healing from. And to this day, we're at family reunions together and just you name it. So that's sort of my foster care story.
Well, that's amazing. There's a lot of different ways that people look at family and from culture to culture. And that whole cousin thing is something, that we've talked a lot about here because some of our kids, if you listen to what they say, they have somewhere around 300 or 400 cousins. And
yeah.
I don't think biology would necessarily agree with the technical word of cousin, but that cousin thing is a big part of a lot of cultures where it's maybe not blood family, but it's still treated as family just the same.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think that's so important, and like you said, not necessarily blood families. And even as an adult, I know, my culture, it's sis. If I have a good girlfriend that I'm really close to, that's my sis. Or if we kind of grew up together, that's my cousin. So then foster cousins fit right within that framework. That's my cousin. Blood does not matter. Bond does.
And that's what these kids really need most of the time. They need somebody bonded into their life. If you don't get that solid attachment, the problems that causes later on down the road are deep and phenomenal. We've talked to quite a few people about things like reactive attachment disorder, which occurs when that attachment is broken and the child doesn't learn to form that at a very young age.
Yeah, that's true. And then when that attachment is broken and then broken again and then broken again because they've moved, from their, original home to maybe a foster parent home and then maybe to another one. And as you know, Jason and Amanda, up to 11, 12, 22 homes, and it keeps on getting broken. It's difficult, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I was editing an episode earlier from, who was it? I think it was Galen Elmore. He played for the NFL for a while, and he speaks a lot on foster care now, but he was a foster kid, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was 20-ish homes that he was in as a young kid.
Yeah.
And that was always it's just scary to hear that, know that that's what a lot of these kids are going through. Did you see a lot of that in your practice when you're working with families and kids?
I see an awful lot of that. And I see it manifest itself in so many different ways. One of which is a lot of times right before an adoption is completed, the child will do something that they've not done before, right? And it's almost as if they're testing the foster parent to know, is this really for real? I mean, can I really, without a child being able to communicate that? They do it through behavior. That's how they do it. Just sort of testing, am I really going to get to stay here? And sometimes those tests can be a little bit too much for foster parents. And so unfortunately, because of this, I've also seen adoptions fail, at the last minute. I've seen a lot of it, but I've seen the flip side, the success, right? Where, the stability is finally there. The children are flourishing. They've gone off and, either gone to college or, picked up a trade or just something successful, just somehow growing. Yes.
Yeah, we've seen some of that in our own story as well. We've had some kids who, and I kind of believe now, mind you, my psychology degree was never actually signed by anybody without a crayon in their hand. So take my psychology for what it's worth there. But I've seen a lot of kids who get to that point where it's just exactly like you mentioned. It's that testing, or it's because they feel safe enough to act out.
Yeah, that's right. Both. Right? Both. I mean, that's an excellent point. They feel safe enough to act out because they need to communicate. We all have to communicate, right? We're human beings that communicate. And so, the flip side is they feel safe to act out. That's key. And that's why it's so important for foster parents to sort of understand that behavior is not necessarily atypical, and to continue to, go to conferences and trauma-informed care, just with their licensing entities, make sure that they sort of hone in on those skills and that knowledge base.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't feel like we had a whole lot of when we first got into foster care. But to be fair, a dozen or so years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of people talking about trauma-informed care at that point. I know that, what's her name, Karen Purvis was working on a lot of that stuff at the time, but just had not really gotten widely spread among, the lay people. I'm certain that the people who, actually, I've met a couple people. I was fortunate enough to meet a guy recently who sat in one of her classes at TCU and actually was instructed by Karen Purvis.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, you and I need to talk.
Yeah. Wow. Just wow. I mean, it's a budding science, but it's been there, right? We're just sort of able to make it tangible and sort of communicate it in these terms. And I love it because it's a common language. So you and I can talk about trauma-informed care and we both know what we're saying. We could also describe the children's behavior and the importance of foster care parents sort of becoming well-versed. But when we use those words, we just immediately get on the same page.
Well, yeah, because, a lot of people don't really think about it in this light. But, the house I grew up in, my parents were what you might term old school. Are you familiar with the switch dance?
Oh, go pick your switch dance, that one.
I see you're versed in that language as well. Yeah, that's a world I grew up in, except my mom, and I told her this, she was a psychological terrorist because she found a switch she liked. She really liked it. She didn't want it to dry out and go bad. So she put that sucker in the freezer to keep it green. And when it was your turn, she'd take it out of the freezer and you got to sit and watch that sucker thaw.
Oh. So I was going to say, and every time you open that freezer, you see it right there. We call that Mr. Do-Right, but you got to watch it thaw, right?
Yeah. And then she there was 4 of us growing up. I think she only used it 4 times.
Okay, good.
And then I'm pretty certain we got rid of it or got smarter or got sneakier or something.
Right.
But we grew up in that world where that was a real thing, right? And they assumed that what a kid needed, spare the rod, spoil the child was the mentality that we really grew up with. And I'm not going to say that's all wrong, right? I've had a few kids who just needed God put the hard hand on the front side of my hand and a soft backside to get a kid's attention. I'm not going to say that I've never reached down and swatted one to go, hey, get your eyes up here and pay close attention now, boy.
Right.
And that's not always terrible, but when you get a kid who's been through some of these stories that I'm sure you've heard, some of the stories we've heard, you try and do that thing that's natural just to reach out and go, hey, get your attention. And you suddenly become the next person in a long line of abusers who have ruined this kid's life.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And those triggers, right? Those triggers, that's why it's important. And every child is different, right? Every child has had a different type of abuse, for one, or neglect. And every child responds differently. So it really is important for our foster care parents to just individually focus on a particular child. There are some generalities, but it's important to know, the triggers as best you can for each child.
Absolutely, because they're all different triggers. That's one of the things we found, everything from food triggers to, even being put in a room by themselves. Yeah. I've watched children, wait to not eat at all and then wait till midnight and go sneak, and maybe 4 or 5 years old, go sneak in the refrigerator, sneak out of bed and wait till everyone's sleeping and start hoarding food in the closet because they just don't know if they're going to get to eat the next time. Yeah.
Or the next time. So yeah, you just don't know.
So there's a lot of those trauma pieces that, most people in our world, because we're in the Midwest, good old fashioned Midwest values, right? And
that's right.
And so that idea that, you gotta get your kids' attention and deal with them in a certain way, that's kind of a prevalent theory around our world, I would say. And a lot of times people think it looks like you're just enabling a kid to do whatever they want when you step into that trauma-based or trauma-informed care.
Right.
And so how have you seen that play out with some of these families, whether they chose a more traditional method or they were actually really, really well informed with trauma care?
Yeah, I don't think, many families are just automatically really well informed. I don't think there's enough resources out there for that even to be the case, right? So, what I find is parents, sort of growing as they go. And I'm thankful that the various, child welfare systems have, interventions. So like I've got a client now that I'm working with and they're struggling. They're struggling a lot. They're on the adoption path. And so what the Department of Child Services has done is bring in more services and more education opportunities so that they can learn that this behavior is because of the trauma. And there's more home-based counselors. There's just more therapists. And so that's what I find. It's just, that the child welfare systems just come and sort of help when they need to. But I don't find that, no one just knows. We can't know, we just can't.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge. I know you said that you got to grow up around a lot of foster kids at your aunt's place. And, that's something that I don't think many people have that experience.
Yeah, it was neat. It was and my aunt is one of the most loving ladies. As a matter of fact, I've modeled one of my characters, Mama Paula, in a book that I wrote, is sort of modeled after my aunt and some of my clients who are just like the best, from my perspective, the best foster mothers ever. And she was that. And so, they would always give her the hard cases. And she just had this way about her, for one, advocating for the children, and then two, certainly learning about them. But she could just figure out how to make the most, like the horrible situation, just sort of neutralize and get a connection with very hard to place children. And so I have a lot of admiration, but I'm telling you before the show that, I grew up with tons of foster cousins that are still my cousins. And so we do family reunion. They come to the family reunion, they're considered our family. It's aunt this, it's aunt that. And so it's just nothing for me. It's just normal.
Yeah, that's amazing that you guys are able to put together that kind of a family structure for kids who may not have a biological structure elsewhere in the world to lean into. That's a huge benefit to just the culture in general, because, man, a lot of these folks end up alone in this world. And, I mean, what are the stats for kids who age out of the foster system? How many of them end up in jail or end up homeless? The numbers are just terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is, Amanda. And Jason, it's crazy. I mean, they say that the foster children aging out of the system comprise the fastest growing homeless population, you know. And, entities were trying to combat that by creating, aging out, sort of services and, systems and things of that nature. But it's hard to keep up. It's growing so fast.
It certainly is. So the fact that you guys are creating that structure for a lot of these kids and keeping with it over the years, that's just amazing and helpful. Now, you did mention a book, and we haven't really talked about it yet. You have you've written a book called Adopting Tiger.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it without, I don't want you to give away the whole book, but
Oh, well, I get excited about it. So just a high level, it's basically a book about two families attempting to adopt the same foster child. The foster child is Tiger, and he's a 12-year-old biracial young man. And one family is a professional football player in the hometown and his wife and children. And the other is a biological aunt whom he had never met. And it takes you through the twists and turns of just sort of their individual lives. And then at the end, we figure out who gets to have Tiger and sort of how he responds. But the reason I wrote the book is because, I'm trying to do everything that I can to increase a platform to help one destigmatize foster care, to show that, we're all sort of related to foster care in some kind of way. And two, sort of bring a call to action. My thought is, when you read the book, it's like taking an aspirin. For some people, right, it's going to go to the hip because maybe I need to, have some work on my hip. The other person, the head, the other person, the elbow. It'll hit you wherever it's supposed to hit you. And it's a short read. You can read it in like a day or two. But that's the book, Adopting Tiger.
So what led you into reading? Yeah. Let me try that again. What led you into writing a book about that system anyways, about a kid being trying to have two different families adopt them at once?
Yeah, well, it's important for me to communicate the message that children are abused, period. That's the bottom line. And then I wanted to make it a fiction book because I wanted to make it sort of palatable. I wanted people to be able to swallow it and it not be too alarming. So I wanted to sort of put the issues within the context of persons and people. And then my hope was that people would somewhere see themselves in one character or two. So that was, kind of why I did it. But, I go around and talk to foster care agencies and other entities, and I just find some of the same questions are being asked or some of the same knowledge is being sought. So I figured if you just put some of this stuff in a book, then it's an easier way to spread it. It's an easier way to spread the messages. And it's got some twists and turns.
As most of these stories do.
And that's the point. And the children, and really you'll see in the book, Tiger, he's sort of a victim of it all. He's not chosen this. And so that's what the book does. It puts you in sort of the seat of a foster child. These things are happening around me and I'm being told, okay, now I'm here. Okay, now I'm there, that sort of thing.
Well, and I think it's so important that people see it from the view of a foster child because most people don't. They don't think about it. And we just jump into, okay, I'm an adult. This is the adult role. This is what I have to do. And too often that child just kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah. That's right, Amanda. I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. And they see that. Yeah. Our children are not dumb.
Right. And they internalize it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
What does
and
all
they blame
this mean?
Themselves. It's all their fault.
Yeah. They have a really, 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 a high ability to make it be their fault when it's not,
Oh, yeah.
So that's that. Yeah. So
they'll carry that for days and years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because it's been my experience that most teenagers are almost psychopaths anyways, and they believe they control the entire world around them. And that's my theory as to why they believe it's all their fault.
Yeah, that's right. Something about growing up out of those teenage years.
Or maybe I've had a few teenagers and I've just tried to find a way to call them psychopaths.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Some days are harder than others.
Right. They test us though. They test us. They make us bring our A game.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes. So I know you also had the Foster Care Perfect Imperfection series.
Yeah.
Now, what's the best way for people to find that?
So they can find that on Vimeo. And so basically what that is it's a documentary, and the foster care system is the main character. So it, again, explores the ins and outs through interviews. So like we were talking recording about a professional football player, I think that you've had on the show. In the documentary, there's the Indianapolis Colts general manager and his wife were on the show because they adopted his two cousins out of foster care. So they're sort of sharing their story. I have a grandmother who, because of the opioid epidemic, found herself in a position where she needed to adopt her 2-year-old grandchild. And that happens a lot. And so she's sort of sharing her story, how her child kind of got into this. She ended up having some problems, not only with drugs, but with other things. And I've got an African-American family who talks a little bit about disproportionality from their story, and just and I've got a state senator and just some other people, somebody to talk about complex PTSD, how trauma affects the brain, all of that stuff. So the purpose is just to give a good look at the system and make the system the main character, thereby allowing people to grow and understand and, be better able to sort of navigate, And so that can be found on Vimeo. Yeah.
The system is a complicated character.
Yes.
It's kind of like trying to wrestle an alligator. It doesn't matter what you do some days. You just have a whole lot coming back at you.
That's it. Well, and then you could go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say every case is different.
That's what I was going to say.
It's treated differently. And so you have people discussing cases with other people. It went this way for us and it was this way. And then people get frustrated because it's not all cut and dry.
It's not. That's why podcasts like this one are so important, right? So that they can see. And so because when you have a tough time, like when it didn't kind of go okay, it's easy to feel isolated, right?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. But when you realize there's this really big community of people like you, similar heart, similar situations that are going through something so similar, then you're able to sort of, breathe, exhale a little bit and face it and navigate, so that's important. But the system is complex, so it's complex because it's not perfect. That's why I called it perfect imperfection. It's perfect imperfect. We all have the same goal in mind. That's to help these children. But the way we get there just isn't always smooth.
Yes. The journeys are not parallel for certain because that's, we've talked to people who had amazing journeys where they more or less ended up connected with a kid that stayed in their house and they adopted them and they lived there forever and worked through their little bit of struggles here and there like every parent does with a kid. And we've had them all the way down to the story that Cheryl Rougeau told us about the little girl with reactive attachment disorder who attempted to kill her sister more than once, tried to burn the house down while they were sleeping, and this while the little girl was 8 years old when she did all this.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that we don't talk about a lot that I think we do need to is not every foster care home has benefited a child, and so we have to figure out how to fix that. I do not know the answer, but we have to fix it.
I was hoping you had the answers to that one.
Right?
I don't know. I don't know if you vet more, but you can't always, I don't know. But we need to.
That's been one of the struggles we found is that, not every kid who showed up here was really the kid that's wired to be here in our home.
Yeah.
Because, I know that I appear to be the perfect person and all because.
That's right, Amanda, right?
Oh, yeah. Very much so perfct for me.
There you go.
She says that because I think she almost pulled a muscle rolling her eyes when I said I was perfect. I don't blame her. But we had an emergency placement brought to us several years back, and he was a young teenage boy. And we've always said, hey, look, the little ones are that's my jam, right? You give me an infant. I know a lot of guys are scared of babies. Give me an infant, and I don't care what you got. I have put babies addicted to methamphetamines asleep. That's my world. Like, you just hand me that kid, we'll be fine. You give me a 3-year-old, and once my old back gets me down on the floor and we get a play mat out and some Hot Wheels, we're going to have a good time. That's my world. You give me a teenager who's in the middle of a hard place, that's not my strong point. And I know this. And they convinced us once that, this young man needed a place, or he was going to Boys Town because they just didn't have a place for him. And, man, we did our best.
Oh, yeah.
We did our level best, but he stayed with us for, what was it, like 5 weeks?
We made 6 weeks.
Was it 6 weeks? Okay. And I felt bad because when we called the work, I said, hey, this has got to stop. This ain't going to work. He was trying to kind of buck up and get a little bit physical with Amanda, and my teenage boys were about to put hands on him, and it was getting a little sideways real fast. And I said, y'all got to come get this boy. We cannot, this is going to end up with law enforcement involved, and I don't want that. Right. And I look back and go, yeah, we should have known that ahead of time, but that's just not our place. This is not our place to step in.
The thing I love, though, is you have the wherewithal to ask for the removal. I mean, that's a lesson right there for the listeners, right? That there is okay. It's okay. You don't have to feel so guilty, and not do it. It is the best thing for this family and ultimately the best thing for the child. Sometimes to make that request that this is just not a fit. And like you said, it's going to get physical. It's going to get to a space that we don't want. So let's stop it. So my hat's off. I mean, I'm just feeling all manner of respect for you guys making that decision, quite frankly.
Yeah, but so many foster parents are afraid to say, I can't handle this situation, because they feel like if they say it once, then that means they can't handle any situation, and they're not going to be considered to be a placement home again. They're too afraid to step up.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very true. That's absolutely true. And it's not the case. If anything, there's the child welfare system, holds that in high regard, that, because that means that's one less emergency that they're going to come to have to deal with in that home. No police call, it didn't escalate, it didn't elevate. It's not this huge fire we have to put out. We prevented that. So what our listeners need to know is that oftentimes that's appreciated and you will be looked at favorably.
Yeah, I felt really bad because I made the call, and I talked to the worker the next day. I'm like, hey, look, I'm sorry we had to call with this emergency deal. Yesterday we need to do this emergency movement or somebody's going to get hurt. And she goes, oh, no. How long was he with you guys? It was like you said 6 weeks, right? And she says, that's the longest he's been anywhere. I said, what do you mean? She said, he's never stayed anywhere more than 3 days before.
Yeah, that may be 2 years. Too. When we're looking at solutions, it would be nice to equip foster parents maybe with that information ahead of time so that we know, first of all, we could say automatically, I just don't think that may be good here for whatever reason, or we know what we're working with and we can bring in resources. So maybe that is part of the solution. If we have like a solution bag, we can put in the bag, let us know those sorts of things ahead of time.
Yeah, because there's a lot of kids who need homes right now. A lot of kids who need homes, and there's not enough homes to step in there. And I think that's part of the problem is at some point you get to looking for warm bodies to house kids, because otherwise where are they going with them?
Yep, that's right. And then ultimately, like we said earlier, on the streets, especially the older ones, because they are going to age out. They're going to, ultimately there, or a group home, which may or may not be the best for the child, So yeah,
Well, and that was the thing, to be quite honest, the reason why we took the young man, and it was supposed to be emergency placement for just the weekend, and then that weekend came and went. Monday came and went, didn't hear from our worker. So on Tuesday I called and she's like, I'm going to be honest with you. We have no place for him to go. The only option is I'm going to pick him up and he's going to go to Boys Town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at that point, what do you say? And it's like, no, I can't. He's a young man. He's 13 years old. I'm gonna send him to Boys Town for kids that are placed there for obvious reasons. And it's, so we tried our best, and in the end, he ended up going somewhere with relatives and everything like that. But, it's scary that there's not a place for our kids.
Yeah, it is scary. That's very scary, That's a problem that has to be worked on.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We need more places for kids to go. And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot, is just trying to encourage some people who, if you want to get into foster care for money, go away. We're not interested.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No, that's right.
And I know the area we're in, it's, if you're doing it for money in the state of Missouri, you're a fool, because there's not that much money to going around anyways. And if you're making money off of it, you're probably doing it wrong. So I just throw that out there to begin with. But if you ever had an inkling, a thought that I might be interested, man, we need people to step in.
And thing of it is, we need people to step in and become placements, but we also need mentors. So if someone says, I want to do something, but I don't have the bandwidth to actually, take in a complete placement, there's all sorts of other ways to assist, mentorship, or, I tell people this all the time, you may have your child's friend at school, may be a foster child. So you're going to take your child out to the skating rink, maybe invite that child. That's small. That's a one-time thing. You can do things like that every single one of us can do something for the cause.
Yeah, because that used to be a real challenge. And now with the new prudent parenting standards, you can actually do that so much easier now. I know we had a real struggle with that. We went for probably 3 or 4 years without a real date night because we had foster kids and we couldn't let anybody watch them.
Yeah.
Unless they went through all the background checks and, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people wanted to have to go through that just to be able to babysit a couple kids for the night.
Yeah, they didn't want to have to give their social security number for that. But now with the prudent parenting standards, we're able to move into the world where we can actually do something and create some normalcy for some of these kids.
Yeah.
And that's been a great change that the government has actually made. And I don't say that lightly because the government doesn't usually make great changes for us.
Right. Well, that was a good one. They get a plus for that one. Well, and the thing of it is, in terms of a normal life, that's part of a normal life. Watching mom and dad, work on their relationship, their marriage. So then they come back and they're better off for us. So the foster children need to experience that part too, just like our biological children would experience.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a time where, our kids could not even go and spend the night at a friend's house. Yeah. It's like, how do you explain that to a kid? You're a kid and you should be able to do everything that a kid does and you're a part of this family and everything, but you can't go and spend the night. All the other kids are going to go and spend the night with grandma, but you can't. You got to stay home.
Yeah.
What does that do to a kid over and over and over again?
On top of whatever happened to get them in your home,
right,
in the first place.
Absolutely.
I think
so thank goodness for the governor.
Yeah. I think it really serves to help further that feeling of being the other in those kids' lives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we really wanted to destigmatize. And, we've dealt with that in our lives as much as we have, but we feel like, for the most part, we've done a decent job of trying to change that for kids. But, getting that story out there where people know that that's the thing. These kids are going through hell.
Yeah. And they are, and don't know how to tell us, but we see, in their behavior, they are going through hell. And not everyone is an extreme case, we have some babies that are, have drugs in their system that maybe have no signs, and they're able to develop and grow and all that kind of stuff. And so there's just a wide range. I always say be prepared for the worst, but understand that it can likely come short of worst, in terms of what you have to deal with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Being prepared for the worst case scenario is definitely worth doing in this world, but you also have to know that there's some beauty in it.
Oh, yeah, there is. And some children don't have the extreme issues. They just need a home.
Yeah. I've got a couple kids tattooed on me right over here that story is all about. Last I saw, they were doing great, but they were with us for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've got a young lady now that just reached out to me. And so she graduated from high school early at 17 and got a full ride to university. And as a matter of fact, she got so many scholarships, she can't say yes to all of them. There's sort of overflow.
Oh, wow.
So, isn't that special?
Yeah.
So you hear those beautiful, beautiful stories, a lot of athletes, a lot of little basketball players out of it. It's a lot of stories. I've been doing it long enough where I get to see them come back around, and let me know what's going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So in your experience, most of the kids that you've seen come back around, I mean, is it, what is the common theme in their lives that tends to bring them back around into your world where you can see them and go, wow, you've done amazing for yourself?
You know what? It's when they've built that resilience up, right? They've just built, and I do say that, you know, from my perspective, foster children are some of the most resilient. You know, a lot of children would have been broken. A lot of people would have been broken having endured what they endure. But it's that resilience factor. They've worked through so much, and they've had the benefit of services and the benefit of really loving and good, understanding foster parents. You know, I've got some of my clients who are already in the medical field or already therapists. And so they kind of come into it with a different level of understanding and abilities and things of that nature. Those children tend to get some things they need. You know, tend to get some things they need. But on the whole, it's just a matter of resilience. I see this. I will never, ever, ever do this to my child. I will not be in this situation. So I have a plan. And my plan is I'm doing this, then I'm going to school, then I'm doing this, then I'm doing this. You know, so those are the ones that I see that are the most successful.
Yeah, that's the what we need to figure out, how to bottle that up and give a quart of it to each and every foster parent out there, because it can be real tough, especially some of these kids who come from the hardest situations, to remember that, you know, when you meet a kid who's got some sort of dissociative issues, when you meet a kid who's got reactive attachment, when you meet a kid who's got autism or something like that, that oftentimes these are just symptoms of where they've been.
Right. That's profound. That's it. That's absolutely it. You know, and they're just navigating. They're testing buttons. They're figuring out, are they safe? And they're just navigating, you know, basically it's a journey.
It really is. And the mental health with kids it can be a real struggle, because I know that, you know, we had a daughter who spent a good amount of time in Children's Hospital, and I did not see many people in there like yelling at the kids because of the way that the cancer was eating away at their bodies somehow or another, right? That just doesn't happen. But when you see a kid who's going through mental struggles, it can oftentimes be the fact where a parent just wants to, you know, do the Homer choke and say, knock it off, quit being this way. And it gets the best of you sometimes when, honestly, you're looking at the reaction to what someone else did to them in the past.
Well, you're right. And it's, I mean, to your point, it's almost like a parent may think it's a choice, like you're choosing this behavior. Well, even if I am choosing, there's a reason I'm choosing, right? It's sort of the natural progression of, like you said, what's going on inside of me, you know? And that's why when we were talking about that trauma-informed care, I mean, that's a fancy name, but we don't have to call it that. We could just say, you know, have some empathy, learn a little bit, you know, whatever that looks like, you know, whatever, you know, so that we can understand that for this set of circumstances, this is normal. And there is something we can do and chart your progress. Do you see progress in the behavior? Because we need to pat ourselves on the back. It's kind of like running a marathon, right? At some point in time, we got to stop for a water break, right? We got to say, oh my God, I've made it to this mile. I'm doing pretty doggone good. I've made it. You know, we have to pat ourselves on the back to allow us to continue to have endurance and do date nights, like you said, right? We have to restore individually. A lot of times we talk about self-care and certainly marital care. And that's all important stuff. It's all important in terms of a holistic approach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, date night's something that we don't get very often.
Yeah, understood.
Just for a lot of those same reasons, because, you know, we have teenagers in our house, and some days you can leave the younger kids with the teenagers. Some days it would be a less wise decision.
Right. Well put. Very well put.
Yeah. A lot of times, you know, for us, there's a little bar up the road here in this little town we live in, and Amanda and I don't really drink anymore, but, you know, we might put the young ones to bed, and we might go out and sit up there and have a glass of iced tea or something, and go pretend, you know, we know how to play pool and get our 45 minutes worth of entertainment out of 4 quarters worth of pool.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
When you suck, it actually lasts longer. You have more fun.
It's pretty funny too.
Yeah, I think I've had. If you were to count strokes, we've had games that lasted longer than most 18 holes of golf do. So,
I know that's right. We're going to just sort of lean into this a little bit, and
yeah.
So, are you guys good at playing pool?
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
Right.
No.
That's what you're saying, right. But you enjoy it,
and that's it. We've just found something that's inexpensive to do, where we can be a mile up the road. So if something does go sideways, it's no issue for us to get home and deal with it. You know, but to find some small things like that, or find some parts of your community, you know, if for people who are really tied into a church community where you can have some people who are willing to lean in and come over and just watch kids for an hour or two. You know, that's something that we don't really have in our world a whole lot of. Most of our family, for one reason or another, is either not interested or not capable of keeping an eye on kids for a while for us. So that's been a struggle that I know us and a lot of other foster parents out there struggle with. So when you see these parents going through this struggle trying to adopt kids, and their marriage has to be hitting some rocky parts, some strains. Have you seen that really derail any of those attempts at adoption, or where that changes their relationship?
Both. So I've seen it all, right? So I've seen the marriages struggle and maybe not even survive sometimes, particularly if the foster child is a biological child or biological relative of one of the partners. And so there's a different vested interest maybe, right? This is my blood. And so, this is basically my child, and so maybe a spouse may not see it the same way. And I've seen, relationships split, unfortunately. And I've seen adoptions disrupted to keep marriages together. So yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, I know we talked with, I believe it was Gina Human, who her and her husband raised a young man that they adopted, and he had reactive attachment disorder. And she said, we got through it because we just made a pact at the beginning and said whoever asked for the divorce has to take the rad kid with them.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, it's kind of like when you the rule, don't bring up divorce in a marriage, whether we're talking foster kids or not. That's a good rule right there. And you got to take the rad kid with you.
but and Gina's done a TED Talk. She's a TEDx speaker. And so she has a story, and their story actually came out really well. For a kid who was diagnosed rad at a young age, going through some hard stuff, they were able to turn a lot of that around through some really specific types of therapy that aren't really that commonly known.
Yeah. Wow. So they were able to seek out this sort of very unique therapies. Yeah. And so I wonder, did the Department of Child Services help them with that?
Now, if I remember right, I think the therapies, they had exhausted almost everything.
I mean, they had helped, but in essence, it didn't help the situation. They had help, but it didn't really get them anywhere.
So they were just really, really tunnel vision focused. And I see that a lot, though, actually. And I've got some parents right now that I'm thinking of that have just really, really discovered some really, really unique services. And they're telling the caseworkers, this is what's needed. Now they also have the background, so that lends to credibility. But, I've seen that as well. Just that just being really zealous. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have to be willing to put the important things first. And, that's for Amanda and I, that's always been, the marriage comes first.
Yeah.
Because if we do this right, one of these days, all these kids would be out of our house.
And taking care of you.
No, I ain't going that far. I'm not going that far. I'm just thinking having a clean house for more than 12 hours.
Maybe one or two of them might. I'm saying might.
Right.
Yeah. I figured, well, we've had 7 kids altogether that we call our own. So we figure one of these kids ought to be able to be successful enough to put us in a nursing home that doesn't beat us too much, right?
Yeah.
That's my hope for you.
Well, as of the other night, Turtle said he was going to be a construction worker and he was building Mama a mansion. So we're good.
Oh, yeah, you're real
Mama
good.
gets a mansion, so.
Well, he's also 7, so we got a couple years to wait.
The plan could change several times between now and then. Yeah, but the thought was really there,
And then he said it. Yeah. That's right. I love it. That means he's loving his mama.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Turtle's one of our special ones. Turtle was, actually, if anybody wants to listen to his story, it was back towards the beginning. I think it was like a 5-part series where we told his whole story.
Yeah.
But Turtle was kind of a family member, right? Amanda's mom, stepsister, her bio dad, really confusing relationship math, right? And she had an addiction issue. And so that's how he came into our life. And he's just been here ever since.
Oh, wow. How many years? He's 7 now. How long has he been with you?
He's been with us almost, I'm going to say almost 6 years now. 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was right after his first birthday that he came to stay with us. But before that, he was with us probably about a third of his life before that, just off and on, staying with us quite a bit. So, yeah, we've had a hand in his life since the beginning. Amanda was actually the first person other than the doctor to hold him when he was born. So.
Oh, wow, Amanda. Yeah. You guys are mom and daddy. That's awesome. That's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was a very rocky story. Like Jason said, it's a story to behold. You'll have to grab your tissues if you want to listen to it, but it's an amazing story.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Wow.
Yeah,
sounds like it's like a special impact.
That's part of the reason why we do what we do, and to bring awareness for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a lot of kids have been in and out of our lives over the year, but that was one of, I think, the real formative experiences we had. And so I'm curious, how about, like, in your experience, have you had any real formative experiences with that stick out in your mind, that these are the things that made you like go, this is what I'm called to?
I just knew. I mean, honestly, with those first 5 cases, I get it. When I know I'm getting energy from my work, then I just know. And just every case is a different case. So I have some that sort of stick out in my mind, right? So, and they're typically either grandmother stories, right? I had one grandmother actually adopt, 5 of her grandchildren, and just to watch her resilience, to make that happen, oh my gosh. I just, I've had just all kind of stories, but really just doing the work is what made me know I want to do more of the work. And this is where I'm supposed to be. And I just want to lean in and do what I'm supposed to do, to be a voice and to help.
Lord have mercy. I think you made my heart skip a beat. If I'm trying to raise kids to where I don't need to adopt 5 of my grandkids. That's one of my goals in life. I mean, assuming they don't have some sort of terrible accident that that makes them disabled and unable to care for them. My kids better be better than that. They better be on their toes and be taking care of their kids. Because if not, I'm gonna have to thump them.
Yeah, that's right. But like you said, you're raising them now so that that's not going to be the case, right?
That's the whole goal.
That's key. That's really, really key. I think, another story, and Kay tells about it in the documentary. Her story touched me. Like I said, all of them touched me, to be honest with you. But her story touched me because, her daughter was young and she was sex trafficked. And then, got on heroin to begin with. And then, ended up stripping, becoming a stripper in a nightclub. And just going down, fast, going down really, really fast. And watching that grandmother's pain, walking with her through that pain. You have to sort of not, it's shocking, but you can't be in denial. You have to work your way outside denial because there's a 2-year-old life at stake. And so just watching her grab the, bull by the horn and do what she needs to do, no matter how painful it was, no matter how much she struggled. She cleans houses. And so she often had to be home. So she lost income. And so we had to figure out how to get her some money, get her license, with a foster care entity so that she could get some funds coming in. And just even now, sort of just watching her struggle, but yet watching this child thrive. This little girl is so happy. And she's none the wiser. I mean, she knows her grandmother's her grandmother, but her grandmother's her mother. And they've got that kind of bond. So to watch all that Kay went through, and then to watch Julia just be this bright-eyed, sweet, full of energy, funny, smart little girl, they have a special place in my heart. So, stories like that make me keep doing what I'm doing,
Yeah, we've had a couple stories where we see kids really do a turnaround, and that's one of the ones that's tattooed over here. I've got more kids tattooed on me than a normal person should, but just to hear his story and to see what I call A moments, right? I just called him A most of the time, but I saw the moment where he went from being a kid who was terrified of the entire world to where in a public place he decided he could get down on the ground and play in front of other people And that doesn't sound like much to most folks, but for a kid who's lived his life on my shoulders, as a matter of fact, I've got a little statue here that I got as a gift. It's out of a gift shop, and it's a little kid sitting on a dad's shoulders, because that's where this boy spent his almost all of his time with me. If we were in public, he was up there, because he was a cute little guy. People want to get in his face. Oh, you're so cute. And he was terrified of the world. I don't care how much somebody wanted to be kind to him. He was terrified. So he was like a spider monkey up on my shoulders all the time.
He was either on your shoulders or in his little papoose pouch.
Yep. But then the day that I got to see him get down on the ground and play in public, like the cashier in the store thought there was something wrong with me, because you could have knocked me over with a feather.
Oh yeah.
Wow. But to see a little boy, he was probably 4 years old at the time, act like a little 4-year-old boy. Those are the ones where you go, okay, as much as I sometimes feel like we're getting nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, I know we've done something, like we changed something in this kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any super special thing that Amanda or I had, other than just the willingness to create a bond and show him what real love looked like.
Wow. I mean, I got chills as you were telling that story. I could just see that. And like you said, you knew the progress, and you didn't know that was getting ready to happen, that he was just going to be comfortable out there doing that. Oh, just wow. And did that make it worth it? That makes it worth it, right?
Those are all the reasons why we do the things we do, is because that chance to change one life, because like we talked about, the statistics for kids who age out of the system are so bleak and so grim, and to watch him turn that corner and go, okay, like I see some neurotypical behavior here. This is something that's just amazing, because I knew his backstory. I knew the trauma he'd been through, and it was bad. He had one of the worst cases of abuse that our county had seen in probably a decade at that time. And just wow. Yeah. And then you have a hand in watching them turn around. It's just such an amazing thing. So, and I tell people that a lot of times that's enough reason in and of itself for me to go ahead and just say, I'm gonna be part of this game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You made me think about a safe haven story where I had clients take a child in who had been left at the fire department. And it was a little bit of a struggle, because the child was featured in the newspaper, not the child's name, but the fact that a child was left at a fire department in a small town. And people were stepping up, wanting to adopt the child. They had met the child. And, we had to sort of fight because the caseworker originally said the child could be placed, certainly with my clients. And we had to sort of fight for that. Eventually we got it. And now I'll go to Instagram and I'll watch this beautiful little boy. He's about 4 years old now, playing in the water, playing in the rain, running, smiling, having no idea he was left, no idea, at a fire station. And, it gives me chills. It just brings, to be able to be a part of that process and to witness it. I don't know that there's anything like it, to be honest with you, for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, some of those stories are the ones that I think make us fight through the things we fight through. It's what makes it worthwhile, because without that, man, this would be a hard road to walk.
Yeah, I agree. Without that, it would be, So, God kind of allows us to just get that little bit, and it puts gasoline in our engine and keeps us going forward.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that's all we really need.
Yep, I agree.
Natalie, I know you said you have a foster care apparel line, Foster Care by Chavis Fisher, right? Did I write that down right? Excellent.
Yeah, you got the name right. Yeah. And so it's Foster Wear by Chavis Fisher. And so you can just Google that. And so basically there again, the whole point is to bring more awareness. And so there's cute, T-shirts, coffee mugs, sweatshirts, hats, book bags, fanny packs, you name it. Either it's I care for foster care, or, or foster and care, or adoption rocks, what have you. But you'll find tons of stuff there. And for your listeners, Jason, and Amanda, I am offering a 15% discount for 30 days. And the discount code is FCN, and that's for Foster Care Nation. It's FCN 2021. And so, all items in the store will be discounted at 15% for your viewers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now I know Amanda's happy about there being some cute stuff in there, but hopefully there's something that's that doesn't make me too cute.
Yeah, it's because she's a cutie. But there'll be some stuff for you too, Jason.
Well, cute doesn't always look good on me. I'm just gonna say, but I do coffee cups. You said there's coffee cups, right?
There you go.
Oh, my
Don't
coffee
worry.
snob.
I think I only have 3 of them in here right now, so
Right.
I need more coffee.
There's a French press sitting on my desk. I don't drink hot coffee hardly ever. I have no reason for a French press to be on my desk.
A whole French press. Look over to the side. Husband, is that you?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I woke up early and was editing an episode out this morning. I needed coffee because, well, one of the little ones got up this morning while I was up, and I needed coffee to do. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, one of our little guys woke up with a stomach ache this morning and dealing with a not feeling so well 7-year-old. I just needed some coffee to get through all that.
Hence the coffee press.
So yeah, I'll be over there checking out some coffee mugs or something at least.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, you got 15% off.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you telling your story and talking about the experiences you've had, because you come from so many different angles into this world that needs so many more people to pay attention to it. So thank you for your story and your experience and the discount as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for having me. This has been a joy.
Yes, it's been great. Okay, Foster Care Nation, thank you for listening to Natalie's story. Now take her knowledge and wisdom to heart so you can create love and healing in your family and community. Be sure to come back next week. We have new episodes every Tuesday. If you'd like to share your story as a guest, you can reach us at fostercareuj@gmail.com. You can connect with other like-minded people on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fostercareuj. And don't forget, we have a Patreon, where you can support our mission for as little as $5 a month. It's at patreon.com/fostercarenation. The links to everything are in the show notes or on your podcast player, or at fostercarenation.com. And as always,
You are so super awesome. I think you guys are cool. Yeah. Thank you for listening.